All right, so you asked the question. You're the interviewer. I'm the interviewee.
It's a conversation. Yes, you're right. It's an interview, but it's also just a conversation because we're friends and they know it.
Okay.
So it's a conversation. Ask me questions if you have any. I've never had anyone ask me questions on my show. And I explain. It's a conversation, but I've never been asked a question because I think people think it's an interview. So it's familiar, and it's an interview. But it's both.
Right.
But anyway, you're right. My question to you, as an interviewer, is yes, as a native Little Rocker, that is to say Arkansas Little Rocker, as a native, how is it growing up with your skin color?
Okay.
To this current age, which is in the early to mid 30s.
In the early to mid 30s? The early to mid 30s, so the last 3 years, right?
Yeah, well, no, at all.
Yeah,
how are things now that you're 33? And we don't have to include age. I don't know if you're sensitive about it or what.
That I'm 33?
Yeah.
Growing up in the South?
I'd say Little Rock. Do you know the South, or do you know Little Rock better?
Well, if you want to know about... Well, it's hard to talk about being 33 now. I mean, I need... if I wanted to talk about...
You're busy being 33.
Yeah, but if I wanted to talk about growing up in the South, then I would have to talk about my childhood.
Yeah.
Which is, like school. Well, I grew up here in Little Rock.
Yeah, your folks wanted to educate you guys. Folks were on it.
Well, I went
Let's switch sides. I don't want to blow in your face.
Yeah. Well, I'm fine. This is fine.
Okay. Sorry, man.
I first remember attending a Montessori private school for kindergarten and first grade.
Lucky duck, man. That takes dinero. Your dad must have worked hard.
Yeah, he did. He worked hard. See, from there, what was it like, I guess, going into a private school, being a kid at that age? Well, I didn't...
Yeah.
My attitudes about skin color and race in this country,
sure,
it formed from my parents and through the interaction with other kids and through school and watching television. So I can remember going to school and noticing there weren't actually I was the only African American
I'm
kid.
sure.
Yeah, African American kid there.
Yeah.
So, I remember going home one day and I'm in the bathtub and I notice my skin is not like the other kids.
Yeah.
And thinking maybe, is my skin going to turn that way at some point? And,
right.
And then my mother tells me, no, you were born this way. You're African American. You're black.
Yeah.
And then as I went through school, you would see kids sort of kind of differentiate from you.
Sure.
That,
because you were black.
But not in a racial way. I mean, these were just kids. They didn't. Kindergarten, first grade, I didn't see kids really exhibiting any sort of racial attitude.
Awesome. They're too young to care. Yeah.
Then after that,
that's beautiful.
I went.
It's human.
I went to a public school in the second and third grade.
Second and third, okay.
Yeah, and that was at Forest Park.
So you went to a really nice swank preschool plus K place.
I wouldn't call it swank. It was just a typical private school.
My point.
So I attend public school at Forest Park Elementary in the second and third grade.
For me, where in town is that? Is that in town?
That's in Little Rock.
Is it still up?
Yeah, it's still up.
Where is it?
It's off of Taylor Street.
Taylor Street,
it's in
Markham
the Heights,
area?
It's in the Heights area.
Yeah, Markham area, right? Yeah.
Right. All right. So
I used to live on Polk, which is next door.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's my first place. I showed you today.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah, it was a tripod, or not a tripod. It was a 3 people lived there. House split in 3. It's nice. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I went there second and third grade, and
cool area.
Yeah.
So did you enjoy it? Second and third grade?
Yeah. Well, again, I went there second and third grade.
Oh, sorry. I'm horrible.
I'm trying to keep my train of thought here. So
yeah, I know. I'm horrible.
Right. So I went there second and third grade, and one of the experiences that I noticed, my reading ability wasn't up there with second grade. I mean, at least for this teacher. stigmatized as having slow reading levels, which I could understand.
Was it true or was it really a stigma?
I could understand why.
Did your friends?
Well, I could understand why that they were judged that way, because generally from this demographic at that time, you had a lot of children whose parents were either single parent homes, they didn't have the education, just the socioeconomic background of where kids came from left them at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And so since I always, but from private school, I learned this self-motivating, what I want to say, autonomous drive to always educate myself.
I've noticed that. Very well read, much better read than I.
So, and again, through school, parents, and through through this popular culture, my attitudes begin to form, and I always noticed that. And again, you're asking me, what was it like for me? I mean, this is
this is personal perspective.
This is from
purely personal perspective.
This is from my own perspective.
Amen.
Living as a kid.
Good point. Well put.
In these two grades, and I noticed, there's always distinctions between what reading levels kids were, and it was always the white kids had the higher reading levels.
So that was the big competition, not math. It was reading levels.
No, yeah, the white kids had the higher reading levels, and the black kids didn't. But the reason for that again was socioeconomic. It
takes time to learn how to read, and it takes education. If mom doesn't have time,
right? If you have parents who are educated enough to work with their students,
it's very difficult.
Excuse me, their kids at home, their homework, then they excel better.
Correct.
If you have parents who don't
discipline,
or don't have the time, then they fall behind.
Correct. I'm not a good student. I'm sorry.